Hey, my friends. I've been sitting here for a good half hour staring at my phone, being like, I've got to press play. And yet, oh man, what is it that I'm here to say today? I had all these plans. And as I sit down and got this all set up, I realized, those notes aren't going to work. Okay. Try not to waste your time here. Hi. Okay. So I want to sort of tell a story and tell some of the clarity that has been coming through for me lately, as it pertains to all of us here. I've been talking a lot over the last 3 days. I mean, yesterday I had to take a day off because I had William, but prior to that, I had spoken about reclaiming this realm and the false matrix. And, I yelled a bunch on Wednesday about money and the way that money is used to shackle us to a false matrix system that is not a reflection of our real, true reality here on earth. And that money itself is not the problem. It is the ideas that have been created around money. So I've been talking a lot about the false matrix and the darkness. And I was going to talk more about it today, but the message that actually wants to come through is the message of the restoration of the Lumerian Blueprint, which is really sort of what all of this stuff that I've been talking about lately is actually about. And I also want to preface this by saying that I'm going to talk about Lemuria and Atlantis as I understand it. It is as I understand it, not as somebody else understands it through research that I've done, but as I understand it through Akashic readings and things like that I've done. And I also just want to say that at a certain level, these narratives don't exist. It feels really important. I mean, I think that was my hang up as I was sitting down. It was like, A, you can't concentrate on the darkness today, and B, you have to pull the curtain back for yourself and for everyone to the place beyond the narratives. Because when we cycle around in the narratives, we can only manifest within the parameters of those narratives. So in order to sort of explain what I mean by that, I'm going to talk about the Lumerian Blueprint restoration. So yesterday I had a session with one of my private clients, and she asked a question about a memory that she had of herself as being one of the creator beings. And then she also wanted to know what her first ever incarnation on Earth was. And those two questions gave me such insight into this whole thing that we are a part of. So in the first question, I tuned in and confirmed for her what she already knew. She had already had this clarity for herself, that she had the role of kind of like a scribe and a coder of this reality. But what I saw, it's so hard to articulate, is I don't know if you all remember, if you happen to have listened to my podcast where I was talking about remembering being a creator being and one of the founding members of this whole thing. And I was talking about how it's almost like the angels, at the angelic level of consciousness, it's like the angels blow these beautiful bubbles. I don't really know how else to put it. They are these gentle creators. They just release these bubbles of potential, of raw, undifferentiated potential, which I think our entire universe is unto themselves. And then there are these dragon beings that, just so you know, I still feel like I sound crazy when I talk like this, but here we are. I do it publicly on the internet. There are these dragon beings that then fly around the bubble, and they have two roles. They, on one hand, protect it, and they also heat the bubble up. They add this element of heat that causes all of the primordial material within the bubble to swirl and coalesce and start to move and start taking form. But at that point, it's still very much like a raw materials kind of thing. And then that bubble gets passed on to what I understand to be collectives of extremely high dimensional beings, galactic beings, and I have identified that I see, this isn't by no means an exhaustive list, this is just what I see so far, and I'll always only ever report what I see, and if there's something that isn't what I've directly seen, I will try to reference the person that I received the understanding through. So they pass it on to these collectives of super high dimensional beings that I understand to be mantids, the high dimensional zetas, and andromedans, but I think that there are probably more. My friend Colleen has recognized the serpent group. I haven't seen the serpents on my own, so I'm referencing her. But I see these collectives that they take this bubble and they almost like put a paintbrush in it and start swirling it around. And like, I don't know, it's like they're creating galaxies or something like that. And at that level is where I saw this person during her Akashic reading yesterday. And she was a scribe. And so while this stirring process was happening, it's like she was encoding it with what I would call light language. But I only call it light language from my human perspective because it's not our Greco-Roman alphabet. You know, it's not like A, B, C, D, E. They're just these glyphs, beautiful glyphs, and they are written in light language. Anyway, and the interesting thing is that the light that she was scribing, she was one of three beings at that level that were scribing codes for this universe. What are the source codes of this universe, essentially, and of this bubble? And the codes were also alive. So once she put them down, it's not like it works here where, like, you know, I write notes on a piece of paper and the marks stay static. It's like as they were written, they continued to move. Like they had a life, an intelligence, a consciousness of their own. And I also saw, furthermore, that they were, these three scribes at this level were writing the outline of the narrative of this bubble, this universe, writing the story. And it is meant to be a story. Different universes have different stories, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to make. And the story, it's like they didn't write out every single detail. They wrote, it's kind of like when we choose our own lives, when we're not karmically looping and we are intentionally choosing our own lives. We choose like, oh, I'm going to be born into a person who lives here and she's going to have green eyes and brown hair, and she's going to have these two parents, and she's probably going to have two sisters, and they're going to live, and these things are going to happen, and these are the important points on her trajectory. But there's all this filler space in between for the wild card, for the story itself to have its own life and trajectory. That's where all of the multiple timelines come in. Like they are created by the choose your own adventure nature of this incarnation experience that we have. So anyway, so I saw her and the other two scribes doing this work, encoding this universe with this narrative. And this narrative had the elements of a harrowing saga. It had a beautiful golden age. It had an infiltration of dark forces. It had a battle between light and dark. It had, so much tension, prolonged tension. It had many rewrites, and it had a return to a golden age. And there might be more. I mean, I wasn't privy to the story. I could just feel the hints of it. It's like I can feel the imprint of the story from that vantage point. And then her next question was, what was my earliest life on Earth? And this one it yielded very cool information. So what I saw at that level that she was a scribe is not, those are not the star beings that originally came here. It's like they code the game and they code that bubble with the story and all the source code, the directives, and then they hand it off to a on the scale, the infinite scale. It's not a hierarchical scale in terms of superiority. It's just an infinite scale of creator level beings. So they hand it down to the next, like a lower group of creator level beings, meaning like smaller, not lower, like inferior. It's just different. It's just a different level of consciousness. Those are the ones that I was like, oh, I remember being part of those. And I also remember being part of the higher level too, because we're all the same consciousness. I hope I'm not, blowing your minds in a way that is uncomfortable. Anyway, so I saw her in that form as one of those. I was kind of referring to them as the Anunnaki because I think the Anunnaki are misrepresented. I think that the Anunnaki are not evil. As I explained, I feel a faction that is like the Enlil faction that we could call evil. And I feel the Enki faction that I'm part of that faction, so I feel like it's benevolent. But the thing is that we're all the same. Like when we wake up out of this, when we exit this game, we're all going to be like high-fiving each other and being like, fuck yeah, that was a good game. We did it. We are truly of the same consciousness, of the same oversoul consciousness. So it's like that level of beings is also part of the same oversoul consciousness, and we are just these drip down fragments of fractals of that level of consciousness, but it's not the top level. So anyway, I saw her. I'm just going to call them Anunnaki, but like, please understand that I'm not meaning that literally. I am meaning that when we talk about creation stories and we talk about like Sumerian creation stories and we talk about the Anunnaki, I don't think they have it right. That's just me. I'm just putting it out there. You can agree or disagree. So that's why I'm using that term, because it's like the shining ones that came down, Anyway, whatever. It's a group of beings, higher dimensional creator beings, probably like 8th dimensional. I don't know. I saw that. So what I explained is that in this bubble, in this beautiful bubble, it's like they're holding the bubble and they're peering inside of it and they're like, ooh, this is a cool universe. Ooh, look at that world. It's pretty nice. It's got some mountains, it's got some lakes, it's got some oceans, some volcanoes. It's got a little shit going on. Let's, then we would direct the energy and terraform this realm. And then through that creation process emerged some hominids, and we were like, those make some dope avatars. We need to make a few adjustments though, so that our consciousness can inhabit those avatars without frying their circuits completely. So we made some mods to the hominids and created humans. And in her first life, what I saw was that initially we just let the humans do their own thing and we didn't actually like interfere with them too much. So we were kind of separate, and we came down in, our star being, light being forms. Like we would come down, project ourselves into the realm as we are at that level. So looking like we do. The mechanics of this I haven't figured out yet, but it has to do with plasma and light. And we would, as I said in my podcast episode, we would bring like tools such as fire or whatever, but also much more advanced stuff than that. Like technologies, wisdom, like understandings, we would bring those and gift them. And sometimes we would also be turds and we would flood the realm, flood the anthill. But there was a point where we decided that we wanted to actually come in and be in here. That was the objective. Anyway, when we first received the bubble, was like, ooh, where can we go to experience ourselves in all these different ways? So I saw that in order to bridge that gap between coming as our light being selves and actually incarnating into the humans, the sons of gods had to come down and lay with the daughters of men. I was looking into it based on her question, and I was like, oh, did she just phase in? Like, I saw her being born as a girl child. She came in as a female. She mostly has female energy, divine feminine energy in her soul consciousness. And I saw her as a child, and I pulled back, I rewound to see well, was she born? Did she just phase in? How did she get here? And I saw that no, there was a point where the light, we as our star being selves, the males came down and impregnated the females, which allowed us to start coming into a human vessel, because that is what has to happen here. Women have divine wombs, divine portals, Stargate portals that allow new life to come in. And so, in those stories where it's the Nephilim came in and raped a bunch of chicks, that's really not how I see it happen. None of it felt malevolent. None of it felt forceful. We were on very good terms with the humans. At that point, very good terms. And that was the beginning of human beings as we know human beings now, which is the merger of the physical vessel and the higher galactic consciousness, the creator level consciousness. So it actually doesn't feel like it was nefarious in any way or forceful or disrespectful. It just felt that was the bridge that the gap that had to be bridged, and that's how it happened. And then what I saw is that once, when we first came in through that way and we started incarnating, we totally remembered literally everything right from the start, full complete memories, and we didn't need a lot of parenting. What we needed was assistance to navigate this physical realm and to stay alive, whatever. Get through infancy and live, get through childhood and live, and come into a stage where we have full control over our physical mobility and an acclimation to the realities of this realm. And we did that for several generations. And then eventually what we did was we put our own mild amnesia veil, not the amnesia veil that we currently have, but a mild form of amnesia over ourselves. And it seems like the purpose was to have an enjoyable childhood. Kind of because it was so tedious to come in with all of your memories intact. I mean, all of them. I don't mean some of them. I mean, all of them, and come into be a baby and an infant and just helpless, and lying there and having to rely on adults and be help me, which babies are mostly like that anyway. I'm pretty sure babies pretty much, especially the ones being born these days. I don't know about all of you, but the babies that I've met, they totally know what's up. But anyway, eventually an amnesia kicks in, and it kind of allows us to have a state of whimsy. We really get to be super present and delighted with the world, provided that we aren't, born into horrendous environments of trauma that just pattern our nervous systems with survival, which unfortunately happens for a lot of people. But in an environment where you're safe and your adults take care of you and whatever, children are so whimsical. They just love being alive. It's like such a kick for them, right? So it feels like we put in some amnesia just to get us through the childhood period and to be able to enjoy being a child and feel that whimsy. And then it was supposed to fade, which is why we started having those rite of passage ceremonies. Like, for example, you know, in certain indigenous cultures, I really hate referencing this because I feel like those rites of passage don't belong to me, and so I cannot speak knowledgeably about them. So I'm just going to very quickly, surfacely reference it, and please know that I'm not meaning any disrespect in doing so. But in certain indigenous cultures, there are rites of passage around the transition from being a child to an adult. And, you know, the ones that I know about include like going off on some kind of a vision quest, like where you might fast, or you might go off into the woods in a place that's set up for you where you are left alone so that you can receive your name, receive your purpose, receive your gift, receive your memories back. And of course, we've been indoctrinated away from doing anything like that. And indigenous people who have maintained those important rituals all over the world have had a horrible campaign launched against them to eradicate them and all their magic, but it didn't work. They're full of magic. So all of this is kind of preamble to say that what I connected to yesterday is that what all of this is about, everything that I've been talking about with Sorceress, the Answer, and just the content that I've been sharing lately, that I've been really inspired to share, all of it is about the restoration of that Lumerian blueprint. Last year when I channeled the Priestess transmissions, it kept referring to the original divine blueprint, and I kind of had a feeling it had to do with Lemuria, but because I didn't have that information yet, I couldn't make that claim. But the information kind of like really consolidated over the last 2 days for me, and I feel comfortable now saying, yeah, it was Lemuria. To me, what I understand is Lemuria was the first golden age. It was actually the first version of humanity. It was an exalted divine humanity that even when we put that little amnesia veil over ourselves to preserve the innocence and the beauty and the purity of childhood, it was still a golden age where the amnesia veil eventually was released and we regained our gnosis of ourselves and who we are and our place within the whole bubble of the universe that we are in, and the understanding of the bubbles upon bubbles upon bubbles of universes that are created. And we were able to connect with the coding of this realm because, in a sense, we were the ones who coded it. So we were able to connect with the coding of this realm and sync our consciousness with it so that we could create. It was a much more light-infused, plasma-infused version of this realm than what we currently are experiencing, although we're in the process of returning to it. Anybody who has any doubts, like, I don't know how you could be listening to me and have any doubts. I'm pretty sure we're on the same page if you're interested in anything I have to say. But just like check out the solar weather. It's wild. It is wild. And it's increasing all the time. So it was a much more light-infused, plasma-based version of this realm. It was kind of a cross between the physicality that we experience here and now, but also like everything was coalescing and moving. And like lately I've been talking about seeing the pixelation of energy, like just really being able to see, again, as I look at my wall, I see the energy moving in it with my eyes, not conceptually, with my eyeballs. I see the shimmering light field of pixelation that everything is made of. And as I've been in my own initiation process in preparation for the Answer, Sorceress, the Answer, because these aren't thoughts that I am generating on my own. These are things that I am receiving because I signed up to be, it's like I have you can't see, but like I have one of those, antennas, and I receive information through the antennas, and I agreed to speak it out to all of you, but I also agreed to practice it. And we're all in an agreement together. Like whether you are somebody that just quietly watches me or listens to my podcast or something in the background, or whether you are somebody who's actively in my world, either on the Patreon or joining any of the things that I have on offer, we have a soul agreement. That's why you want to be in my field. That is why you listen to me, because there are many speakers, and I'm one of them. And I agreed to come and do this role. And it doesn't mean that I am better than you or above you in any way. It just means that in the process of restoring the Lumerian Blueprint, somebody has to remember and speak the things out, but we all have to practice it. We all have to embody it. We all have to bring it into this plane of reality by understanding it, thinking about it, letting it change our perspective of the world, changing our choices based on the information, bringing it into a state of mastery. So I kind of got distracted by my own tangent there. The restoration of the Lumerian Blueprint is what this is all about. We are returning to a state of matter becoming more plasma-like. Oh, right, I was describing that realm, that original realm, the original when we came into human form. Originally, this realm was physical as it is now, comprised of all these beautiful little geometries, these little tiny, tiny geometries that or semi-static in their arrangement, I guess. Not as fluid as water or air or fire. The physical world is more, it holds its form for longer, if that makes sense. But back then, it was full of much more light, which was a reflection of our level of consciousness. And that created a plasma-like state so that everything was more like, I don't know how to put it, malleable. Everything in reality, all that we consider physical, was much more malleable. And we're returning to that point now, but we're in the process of returning to it. And it's not, again, I was having a conversation with some beautiful soul sisters and priestesses that used to be in some of my containers. And we were talking about the solar flash and all that stuff. And I was thinking about how, there is this idea, and I kind of had it last year, not going to lie, where it was like, we're just waiting for this solar flash to come and reset everything. And part of us wants to wait because God, we're in such a shit state here. How can we possibly ever make our way out of it unless, the sun just belches out a bunch of plasma all over us and a bunch of us probably die, but at least everything gets reset. It's kind of we're just biding our time, waiting for it to happen. But what I'm realizing as I receive, as I go through the initiation of receiving all of this information, is that, oh no, that's not how it's going to happen at all. There is going to be a flash. I already explained in 5D Light Bridge what I perceive the flash to be. That hasn't changed. I think that was good information because nothing about that has changed. But in the meantime, we are the ones that are having, we are receiving plasma fields from the sun, and we are embodying them, and they are causing ascension symptoms, and we are changing this realm by allowing our consciousness to be changed by that experience. But additionally, I'm going to use the analogy of, what's it called? That show, Westworld. You know, Westworld, when they take the hosts and they repair them and whatever after they've been brutalized. And they have these little iPads or these tablets, and they have they pull up, like Maeve. They pull up Maeve, and that was her name, right? I think so. Anyway, they're pulling up her details and whatever, and they are pre-FOMO. I love you, Alex. They are whatever, she has settings is what I'm trying to say. It's hard to describe. She has settings. And what we discover as we go through seasons 1 and 2 of Westworld is that the settings are adjustable. A lot of us have this experience of feeling like we're getting worked on at night. And that can sound really intangible and what? If you don't connect with that and you're like, what the fuck are you all talking about getting worked on at night? What does that even mean? And also maybe I want to get worked on at night. Well, I'll tell you what I think it means. There's an aspect of us that is still in the star being form. Okay? Our whole star being did not come into this incarnation. A tiny amount did. Tiny amount. The huge amount is still out there. Massive, massive, massive. And as we adjust and recalibrate, it's we went into this dark period, which I kind of wanted to talk about too. So I'm putting a pin in that. As we went into this dark period, our consciousness shut down and it got denser and denser and denser. And it's less and less and less of our star being consciousness retained its memories when it came in. Maybe we had even less and less and less come in. I'm not sure. But there is an aspect of us that is outside of this, I don't know, this bubble, I guess, this realm. And when we go into this realm, it's kind of like Avatar. This is a mishmash of all these different shows that I watch, shows or movies or whatever, and I'm like, that's how it works. That's how it works. And they only give us pieces of the puzzle as it goes along. So it's kind of like Avatar. Whatever. When he's being Jake the human, he's awake and his avatar is asleep. And when he's being the avatar, Jake goes to sleep and the avatar wakes up. It's kind of like that, but not as linear because time is not what we think it is. Anyway, we're getting worked on all the time. It doesn't matter. We don't need to be awake or asleep. It's happening when we're awake. It's just that when we're awake, we're usually occupied by a bunch of 3D things that we have to deal with. Children, jobs, traffic, grocery stores, etc., etc. But when we are asleep, when we go to sleep, it's we can consolidate the work that was being done. And the work is kind of like them having our tablet and raising our, when Maeve takes over her tablet and she's like, I want my intelligence all the way up. I want my self-awareness all the way up. It's kind of like that, but we're not doing it all in one jump because that would fry our fucking circuits. It would fry our circuits. Our human physical form could not handle that much consciousness. It can't handle it all in one go. So we're having it done incrementally. And it's not only happening when we're sleeping, but when we're sleeping, it's consolidating. When we're sleeping, we almost when the world is quiet, even if we're insomniacs, we're still consolidating because we're just mostly kind of just lying there wishing we were asleep. If we are sleeping, we're, integrating it probably on an even deeper level because our conscious mind isn't interfering. It's our nervous system just kind of chills out and everything gets to compute and integrate. So I think that's what it means when we're getting work done. So we are calibrating back to this Lumerian blueprint. And what I ultimately mean by that is if you feel skeptical about the term Lemuria, that's fair. You don't have to stick to that term at all. But what I really mean is that original golden age that we came into, which is the blueprint of this realm. So you can, as I did for the whole last year and a half, refer to it as the original divine blueprint. You don't have to use the Lemurian part if you don't want. Now, like I said, when I tuned into this person in the reading and tuned into her at her scribe level, I believe that she was like Andromedan mantid, scribing. And like I said, it's like this, the realm, the bubble gets coated with the living framework of a living story that is going to take its own shape and direction. And one of the parts of the story of this bubble was kind of like various regressions. And I don't have the whole picture. I mean, there's no way, like, I do not have a linear chronology of all these things. That's not really my department. Archaics on YouTube does a really good job, like probably the best job I have ever seen, forming a chronology. But that's not my wheelhouse. What I do understand is that there was an infiltration of a dark consciousness. I don't know if it came from another bubble. I don't know. At this point, like, I think it's all just roles being played and contracted. Typically, they're referred to as like the reptilians or the Draco reptilians or whatever. And that might be accurate, but as I've tuned into the Dracos, I don't feel that they are an evil group. It's kind of like I feel them spanning. Let me see if I have my notes from Galactic Gateway. I mean, I do have my notes, but let me see if I can find them in a timely manner. Okay. Yes, I do have my notes. Dracos. I feel them from, I think I said 3D to 12D, but I actually feel like it's 2D to 15D. It doesn't matter. That's my perception. My point is that there's probably an aspect of their consciousness that takes on and holds the vibration of great darkness, and it is in order for the story to play out. And it fucking blows from the aspect of being a human and being subject to it. Both of those things are true. But I don't actually feel the Dracos as being a negative group. Reptilians, I think that is a misdirection. I honestly do. I prefer to refer to them as Skeksis because I think that's why they get called reptilians, because they are, in order to fulfill this role, they are separated from the source consciousness, and they've kind of like locked us into this, like into like 3D and 4D perception. And there's no new juice to create from in the 3D and 4D. The creative juice comes from outside of the 3D and 4D. So that's why there are things like adrenochrome and all the like really dark stuff that I also feel is not my dharma to focus on, but I acknowledge that it is a thing and that awful things happen, and that in order to sustain themselves, they have to siphon energy that does not belong to them. Crystalline and Sfotoji, I don't know, I'm saying your name wrong, obviously, whatever. You say, I am from draconian beings. I was told there are different aspects of the draconian beings, a higher evolved race and then a lesser evolved, evolved race are the builders. Yeah, that's totally what I get as well. So thank you for that validation. Okay, so thanks, Monica. So I prefer to refer to them as Skeksis rather than a particular group. And that's partly because I'm not exactly sure what the group is. And also because it doesn't matter. That's kind of how they function. And I think, honestly, I think that the Dark Crystal holds an incredible amount of disclosure. So if you haven't watched the movie and the series, both equally hold so much disclosure. If you watch it and you see the Skeksis, and that like the Skeksis and the Mystics are all one being, they are like two break-offs of one being. Like, it's like, phew, it all makes sense. Anyway, so what I feel that happened is that there was this like paradisical Lemurian, like golden age of incredible enlightenment and beauty. And in came a dark consciousness, very violent and manipulative and predatory. And that commenced a long cycle, a very long cycle, which we are still in, of, we could call it dark versus light, but that's not really accurate. It's like unconsciousness versus consciousness. And the levels at which they have affected humanity are extensive. And again, I don't want to overly focus on this because, I don't know, like as I was sitting down to press play, it's like my guides were like, it's really time for us to like acknowledge the narrative, but also pull the curtain back and see the truth behind the narrative. And the truth behind the narrative is like, I don't know, this shimmering field. I don't know. Anyway, lots and lots of things happen. Lots of hijacking on so many levels. Most of them are at the fourth dimensional level, meaning the astral level. Different within the astral realm, there are at least 7 planes. I think that there are 12 planes. I think that the fourth dimension is like a microcosm of the 12 dimensions that are accessible and manifestable to us in here. So the fourth dimension, they sort of like have tagged us and inserted implants. They have, it's almost like they created these origami like folds in our consciousness energy at certain astral levels and then like stamped it. And then there are these locks that have been put on certain gates that allow us to access our full chakra system. Like full, like I'm talking like whew, and whew, all the way. I've only started accessing all of these over the last handful of months. So like, how do I talk about the darkness and not get lost in the darkness? Isn't that the whole challenge that we all have right now? How do we acknowledge it and not get lost in it? So there are these things, like I talked the other day about the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And I was trying to articulate like, oh, the reclamation of the divine feminine and divine masculine, that like we have to stop. We have to stop. We have to voluntarily decide, even if we are actively wounded by the shit that has gone down, we must powerfully decide that we are not playing into that anymore. But there is this like incredible amount of wounding. And like what I saw is that there are these, oh man, like really deep astral level narrative implants. And it's going to take me too long to try and describe the implants. But I will talk about them at length in the answer, in Sorceress the Answer. But for the purposes of this live, it's like the implants they are stories, and they are also, they're not physical in our physical bodies for most of us. They are astral level in our astral bodies. And they affect us nonetheless. Like, they're very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. And there are these stories of like, certain among us have been collected to be, for example, used as breeders. Certain among us have been collected to be like, oh God, I don't even want to go into all this because it's just so dense, but like used to play out and continually cycle through this oh God, I'm sorry. You're watching me in real time, like feel all this reluctance to use these words because they're so triggery and I don't even want to, I don't want to go there, but I don't know. I don't know if I should. Like rape and sexual violence and like predator, like what I see is that, oh God, we are all one, like we are one group, like humans, male, female. Like the truth of who we are, the original blueprint can barely be articulated because we've become so separated from it. But we have been taken and herded into groups and almost like used for almost like experiments. Like if you imagine lab rats, and like certain lab rats are going to be the control group and certain lab rats are going to like receive a 50-volt shock and certain lab rats are going to receive a 10-volt shock, whatever, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So there are some of us that are tagged with like rape and sexual violence, like receiving. Some of us are tagged with rape and sexual violence, like perpetration, like predator tags. There's all this intensity that must be untangled and is not a reflection of the truth of who we are. Not even close. Not even close. And there was a point where Lemuria, like the degradation was so intense and the contrast was so significant that, we on the outside being stewards of this bubble, I described it to my friend Colleen as like, we received, it's like the angels blew the bubble, the dragons like got the bubble going, turned it into a living thing. And then the Andromedids, Mantids, moth beings, that's one that I have seen. Like true Zetas, those ones who scribe and whatever and like swirl the paintbrush around and get the bubble going. It's like they're the mom who's making the Play-Doh and then they give the Play-Doh to the version of us that are now occupying and inhabiting this realm. And that was my description of it. Anyway, so I'm trying to remember the track that I was on. The degradation got so bad so quickly that we kind of like smushed our Play-Doh world. That was one of the resets. We were just like, whoa, this is intense and this feels awful. And this went like fucking south so fast. And so we're just like, blah, 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 like mush it, throw it out, done, reset. But the thing is that I don't know why. I don't know if this was part of the story that was written into this realm, this bubble, whatever, or if it or if we kind of just didn't do it right. I feel like it might be both actually, but it's kind of like we smushed it without unweaving and disentangling all of the distortion that was created. And so when we restarted, a seed of that distortion remained. Just a tiny, tiny speck, imperceptible, of what we would call evil. But as we know, like tiny, tiny poppy seeds grow into, beautiful big flowering poppy fields. So that seed grew and it has always been there. We have never succeeded at truly eradicating that seed. And I think that is our collective purpose. And I actually, I'm realizing this as I speak in real time right now. That's actually what this is all about. This is what it's all about. And it's suddenly making all the transmissions that I've been receiving make so much more sense. So I'll just quickly fit Atlantis in. I think Atlantis was the fourth version of humanity. I'm so excited for Colleen to be on the podcast too, Alex. I think that Atlantis was the fourth version, and it's an example of, and I could be wrong, and anybody argue with me, or if you have a different idea, I'm so open. That's just what comes through to me. It is an example of, it's the one that we're karmically linked to right now. I don't believe I was actually alive during Atlantis, but I've seen it through many Akashic readings, and I have these vivid images of Atlantis and understandings. I've even heard their language. It's very interesting. We have karmic ties to it right now because it's the version that was it started again as another golden age. Man, it looked like it was going to be a golden age. Oh, it looked good. It looked beautiful. Very, very high consciousness, very, very high technology. It's very closely associated with the Syrian beings, as I've found anyway. Again, you're free to contest anything that I say. And we didn't actually, eradicate isn't the right word. We just did not dissolve that seed. We didn't dissolve it. We didn't dissolve it, resolve it, absolve it, absorb it, integrate it into the entirety of our being and the transmutation. It's like we tried to break that seed of evil down to its smallest particulate and then just hope that we could just like stamp it out, smush it out, and be done with it and forget about it. We didn't understand that we had to, I know this is going to sound so Pollyanna and ridiculous, but like we had to love it. We had to unravel the distortion in that tiny, tiny seed and repattern it from the heart field of love. Anyhow, so Atlantis flourished and a lot of technology was made available. I think that a lot of the amnesia cloak was dissolved. A lot of us could remember a lot of things and communicate with other galactic beings, all that kind of stuff. But that seed of evil was still there. And I believe that it came through, and I've said this before, and I know this is probably kind of controversial, and a lot of people like have attachments to Metatron, but I think that seed is the Metatronic seed. That's what I think. We can call it Luciferian if we want. I don't really know. Again, I say these things and I feel clarity in them, but my human mind doesn't fully understand everything behind it. I don't know if it's separate from Luciferian. I don't know if it's separate from what we call Satan. I don't know. I just feel like that seed is Metatronic. And anyway, and I think the Luciferians are the group that played with the Metatronic seed. But regardless, it was a seed of evil, and it flourished underground as seeds do, right? Underground, unseen, as we have been witnessing in this iteration, in this version of this realm. For a long time, it flourished unseen, and then eventually it came to light, and there was a cataclysm, and it had to be there had to be another wipeout, because it's almost like we keep trying to get it right. We keep trying to get it right. And we have this memory. We're coded with the memory. Like we are all literally coded with that original divine blueprint. And so we know somewhere inside of us on some level that that's how it's supposed to work. That is what is available to us. And yet it keeps fucking going wrong and we can't figure it out. And I believe, hello, wonderful Chelsea. Yeah, we tried to get rid of it without doing the work. I also don't want to disparage our past versions of ourselves as if we were avoidant, because I don't know that that's actually it. It's almost like, I don't know, like maybe we were avoidant. Maybe we were avoidant. maybe there was like this, the reason it was so tiny was because there was this little speck that we could not accept into our hearts as being ourselves. Like, that's the thing. That's where the resolution of duality and this polarized, dualistic, good versus evil narrative, that's where the resolution lies, is that as so long as we perceive the forces of evil as being separate from ourselves and we therefore condemn them, it perpetuates. And it is a very uncomfortable pill to swallow. But when we can receive it and embrace it and bring it home back into the fold of the complete totality of the consciousness of this realm, and find it in ourselves and forgive it, and as I said, absolve, dissolve, resolve it within ourselves, within the fucking power of our heart portals, the power seat of our heart portals. That's when it is truly, it's gone, but it's not gone like you got rid of the enemy. It's like it's returned to the source. So, okay. Let me see. Where do I want to go from here? I've totally deviated. I'm not even on the page of my notes anymore. I don't know why I have my book open. Totally deviated. Okay, so I just want to remind you all that you have a very powerful power center in your body. It's called your heart center. Don't scoff at that. I know it sounds ridiculous, but do you know why it sounds ridiculous? It is because there has been a campaign that has injured us at the point of our hearts, literally from our birth, literally from conception, literally from preconception. There has been a campaign against love that makes us feel that we have to put up these heart walls. That's the only way to survive. And also makes us feel jaded about love. When the truth is that it is the most powerful solvent in the entirety of all the multiverses. That was just a little side note. Okay, so thanks, crystalline lens. Oh my God. Crystalline lens photo. I got there eventually. Okay, so so what I understand about this is like a micro mini introduction. PS, you're all getting a mini first module, kind of an impromptu first module of Sorceress the Answer. What I have received, what I understand. It's I was kind of already there, so some of this sounds repetitive, but the understanding is consolidated, is that in order to truly create, actually, you know what? I'll take it from this approach. There's a difference between magic. So, I called it sorceress, but it is open to men. I love you, brother. Please join me. There's healing here for you. But I called it sorceress. And I called it sorceress, connected to source. Because there is a difference between high magic and low magic. And I'll tell you what I understand that it is. With high magic, true magic, the magic that is all of our birthrights, we have these amazing energy centers called chakras, and they extend far above our body and far below our body. There are so many mysteries encoded within each of them that I could never properly, I literally am going to take 5 months to articulate all of it, literally, in the answer. But there is a chakra that you have to go through all these different gates, and you eventually connect into the holographic central sun. And I have explained before, I think in Who the Fuck Am I? I don't know, whatever. It's a very high chakra. It's like totally outside of this bubble. I wouldn't say that it is like the absolute oneness that is source, but it's very close. It is the everything here. Oh my God, I know so much. And it's like, how do I explain it in such a short amount of time? Everything here is built on the Trinity code. So there is a Rishi level of consciousness outside of this time-space matrix that we understand as this bubble of this universe. And I was describing the other day on my live about the divine feminine, divine masculine, that there's this like field. It's like the first differentiation was source saying like, I am light or something like that, right? I am something. And then in order to be that, it must be two different things. If it must be light, then it must be dark, because how would you know light if you don't have dark? But it also becomes, it's not just those two things. The second dimension is the dimension of binaries. So there is the feminine and there is the masculine, and they are far beyond our human embodiment conceptualization of them. Those are two Rishi layers. And the holographic central sun is like the holy trinity completed. It's like the divine masculine comes together and the divine feminine comes together, and they create them together. They create the divine child. If you will forgive my use of this term, the Christ child. Totally outside of the church frame of reference. And that is the holographic central sun. So there is a chakra that connects you to the holographic central sun. There is a chakra that connects you into the golden heart of the mother. And my words cannot possibly convey the amount of power that is accessible through those chakras. When you learn how to connect in with those, you draw from both directions. And that is the fuel that sources your creations. That's what true magic is. You don't need candles. You can use them if you want. You don't need candles. You don't need like an athame or a wand. You don't need to do candle magic, string magic, chaos magic. You just don't need any of that stuff, because you're drawing from the pure sources. Low magic, which is the kind of magic that the dark controllers do to uphold the false matrix and this grid that they have us all ensnared within, to maintain dominion over this realm. In order to energetically feed the manifestations, the outcomes, I can't even use the term manifestation because they can't actually manifest. In order to feed the outcomes that they desire to create through their magic, they must take an energy source from something that already exists here. And they take it, generally speaking, without permission. And that's where things like animal sacrifice, child sacrifice, blood magic, sex magic, those things come from. It's not about demonizing sex or demonizing blood. It's the way that it's used. Those are sources of building up energetic charges and then taking them and directing them to the outcome that they want. That's low magic. So in the answer, one of the transmissions that I received and I've been working with steadily is how to connect in with the source code of this realm, but also the source code of the different elements, so that we can create, I'm going to use the word realistically, but I mean, it's like fantastical, but it's like create within the rules, if that makes sense, within the patterning of this realm. But we source it from outside of this realm, because we have the ability, when we clear out our chakras and we do like all that reclamation work on ourselves, we have the ability to access those chakras. And we pull the energy in, and then we, from a state of like the most love and benevolence and like unity consciousness, we it is manifestation. It is manifestation, but it's so much bigger than the way that we've previously understood manifestation. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm never going to shame anybody around like manifesting a car. I mean, my husband does it all the time. He's such a car person, but it's like bigger than that, if that makes sense. And the information that I've been getting is that there are some of us, and like, this is just what we chose. I mean, this was written into the story, that we chose to have our memories activated, to begin on the path of remembering these things and remembering ourselves, our true selves, and that we are doing it for the purpose of restoring the Lumerian Blueprint, to bring this realm, this plane of existence, back into its golden age templating, so that we can all experience it together and almost like, I don't know, like bring that ongoing saga to a close. It's like the final book in the Song of Ice and Fire. It's like, we all want to read it. We want to know how it ends. Like, on one hand, we don't want it to end because it's a great series. And on the other hand, we're like, okay, the show is all right, but like, what's the real ending? We want to know. You know, it's like that kind of energy. Like, we want to bring this to a state of resolution, is the best way to put it. And I mean, there's so much, like, I wanted to outline, and maybe I will, kind of what is involved, because I know, first of all, celebrating, there are 8 amazing souls who have joined the answer, and I'm over the moon thrilled to work with them. But I also feel that there are a few outliers. Like, I can just feel you orbiting. I know you're there. I know you're ready for this level of information. I know you're ready to bring it into practice. And I need to call you in. It's my job. It's my job to call you in. So this is what we're doing. And we are doing it from a level of consciousness that, as I said, like, it is the activation of the 0 point field access through the heart portal. It is the connection all the way up to the holographic central sun, all the way down to the golden heart of the mother, and all the chakras in between. It is like the complete onboarding of our abilities. So basically, as we're having, you know, as we are having our abilities turned up on our tablets, and when we're having work done on us, we are also like actively integrating it, actively. So we're turning up our tablets from this side too. And we are repatterning this whole entire realm. Like, ultimately what we're doing is we're dissolving density, and we are releasing it. We are moving it through portals into a state of grace and absolution. We are liberating consciousness that has been locked in implants, tags, stamps, seals, and like gate locks of like trauma and misery. We are letting it out now. We are setting it free. And we are restoring sort of like the ley line grid pattern of Earth, and lighting up a new ley line grid pattern on Earth. It's really big work. And sometimes, I'm going to be totally upfront with all of you, because it's my style, is like, sometimes I sit around and like, I am thrilled to the max with all this information. I'm so on mission because I think about it all the time. And this is what I'm here for. I can feel it. But sometimes I'm like, does anybody else even want this information? When I know that people are trying to pay bills, like, I know you are, so am I. Honest to God, I'm still in the monthly, like, almost every month. I'm like, will I pay my rent this month? I don't know. And I always do, but it's not a cool place to be. I don't love that feeling. And I know you don't either. And So I'm like, it's not about starting a business. It's not about paying your bills. It's not about, I don't know, fixing your marriage or what, like all those things. It's not about that. And I can't even fix it. I can't like put that veneer on it. It's just so clearly about this like bigger consciousness, spiritual work, and like the fulfillment of a mission that is bigger than that. Not better, just it's at a different, I don't know, like a different strata or something like that. But essentially it's for, like, if you're kind of listening, you're like, yeah, but is it for me? Is it for me? And this all sounds good and it's really cool and I love listening to Amy talk, but is this for me? It is for you. How do you know it's for you? It's for you at this time if you feel that you are here to work with energy, that you are here to be a channel, that you are here to bring healing, that you are here to unravel distortion and dissolve illusion and dissolve and resolve and absolve density. It's for you if you are interested in crossing spirits, crossing ghosts. It's for you if you feel called to do grid work, if you feel called to have a part in the formation of the new earth, which, as I understand it, is not a different planet, because I don't think we're on a planet. It is a higher octave of this realm that we're in. I don't know if that makes sense. Higher dimensional octave. It is for you if you're like, I know I came here to do this kind of thing. I know somewhere when Amy says I have superpowers, a part of me is like, I fucking knew it. I knew it. It's for you if that resonates with you, and you don't have to know or have clarity about what your particular role is. That's why I have figured out how to package it up into a journey like The Answer, because it is a process to get our conscious mind up to speed, bring this kind of information into our bodies, start practicing it. And also, like, we do have to rearrange our lives, because the reality is that we are living in, you know, I'll just call it the 3D for simplicity. I think it's actually the 4D. I don't even think we're in the 3D anymore. We're totally in the fourth dimension, but whatever. We're living in a 3D version of life where we do have those stupid matrix connections that we have to maintain. Like, you know, I'm doing all this work and yet I can't do it at the expense of my family. I can't neglect to feed my children. You know, I can't not pay my bills. I have to like keep my feet on the ground. I have to be grounded and somehow bring all this information in and apply it and allow my life to rearrange around it. It is a lot of work. But if you hear me and you're like, that is the kind of soul satisfaction that I'm seeking, that I'm looking for, then this is for you. And I also want to acknowledge that I know there are a bunch of you, because some of you I'm in connection with and some of you I'm not, like conversational connection, who you're like, this is for me and I can't afford it. And I love you and I see you and I feel you, and it's not my desire to make you feel a false sense of urgency or left out or ashamed of yourself at all. Somebody asked me if I was ever going to run this again, and I truly have no idea, because I mean, I like to think that I will. I just don't know. I don't know. I would be lying if I said that I knew, but I'm not saying that to try and create false urgency. I hope you understand. It's just like, there have been things too that I've wanted to join, and I'm like, oh, I feel it and I want to do it, and my bank account just can't allow for it. And so I get it. And I don't want you to feel shitty about yourself, because I love you. And There's no benefit to be had from feeling shitty about ourselves for that kind of thing. But also, if you are, you're hearing me and you're like, I know I want to do this, but it feels insane. And it feels like when I go to actually I look at the sales page and then I'm like, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, that's a lot of time. And then your brain starts telling you, the stories that you need to about well, I'm probably not going to be able to do this. How much time is it going to be? And I have this coming up and that coming up. Listen to the counsel of your mind. I'm not saying override it, but also just feel into the thing that I always use for me, the barometer is always, as I mentioned, I think on Tuesday or Monday, something, is that if I get to the end of this life and I didn't fulfill my role because of some stupid false matrix hang up, I'm going to be so mad at myself. I'm going to be furious with myself. Furious. So anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about how it's structured, and then I will let you all go because I've probably been talking a super long time and I have to record the energy report for the week. But so this is a 5-month journey. So the opening call is tomorrow on August 27th. And we are going to do our calls on Fridays because that's what works for me with childcare things. There are going to be 2 calls a month. They're probably going to be every other month, and they're going to be what I would call curriculum calls, but they're kind of they're workshops. It's where I bring in the transmission and give you the information. And we also come up with there are all these different practices for us to do and practice. There are guided processes, guided manifestation or meditations, visualizations, whatever, that you'll receive during those calls, but also to practice on your own time. And then there will be also, and those honestly, because you know me, they'll probably be 2.5 hours each. So kind of think of it in terms of a college course or a university course. Those, it's not every week, but they're probably going to be pretty thick. And then there is going to be an office hours call that's totally optional. And by the way, they're all optional, but I'm assuming if you want to join, you want the information. But the office hours it's more casual. It won't have a structure. It's for us to have conversation about it, for you to ask questions. For example, it's my intention that on the other side of this, you understand your archetypes. You know what your archetypes are. You know what your galactic lineage is. You know your role in sort of or where you fit in that scheme that I've been trying to articulate of the different levels of creator beings and things like that. You are in contact with your spirit guides. It's my intention that you understand yourself, that the amnesia is not a thing for you anymore, that you know who you are. So in the office hours space, that's really where if you're kind of stuck and you're struggling and you're I don't know, I'm not sure about what my archetype is, or you have questions for the Akashic field, or just me personally, that's where it's more casually structured like that, and it's totally optional. And then what else did I want to say? Right. So it's 5 months long of that structure. And the other thing I want to say too is I totally understand that midday on a Friday is not optimal for everyone. I get it. And I'm in Eastern time. Not everybody's in Eastern time. So I know that those times aren't perfect for anyone. And I just have to pick the times that I know I can steadily show up, So if you're stressing because you're I can't be there live, a lot of people get really hung up on that. But think about when you listen to me on my podcast, I don't even record it live. You're not listening live, and you still get what you need out of it. If you watch the replays of my Instagram lives or my Facebook lives, you're still getting what you need out of it. You don't need to be there live on the call in order to receive. That's not actually a good reason to not join something that your soul is screaming at you to join. And then I've decided I want to do an onboarding call with everyone because I want to see where everybody is at. So everybody's going to get a personal call with me, and it's going to go like that for 5 months. And the kind of things that we're going to go over, as I said, are Well, I have this whole exhaustive list. Oh my God, it's so extensive. Like how to channel, what you're channeling, who you're channeling, how to open your channel, how to close your channel and ground it out, how to open portals, how to open stargates, how to find your spot on the earth for grid work or your spots, how to do grid work, how to do these ceremonies, how to connect in with your elemental, like the elemental consciousness that you best sync up with and that you can move, if that makes sense, what your superpowers are, activation of your psychic gifts, opening up of your chakras, cleaning them all out, removing tags, removing implants, removing seals and stamps, removing gate locks, healing the divine masculine, healing divine feminine. As I said, like all the things of the amnesia veil being removed, remembering your galactic lineage or like your galactic counterpart aspects, as well as your lineage, remembering your spot in the creator being architecture, remembering your giftings from other, like, is your galactic counterpart or your creator being counterpart, is it a scribe? Is it an architect? Is it a speaker? And what role are you supposed to play here? What is your mission here? And how does that fit in with the 3D matrix that we find ourselves within? Because we still have to pay bills for the time being, for the foreseeable future. We still have to pay bills. We still have to feed ourselves, feed our families, take care of our physical vessels, all these things, and so much more. I am 100% confident in saying that this will change your life if it is for you right now to join. It will change your life. That's not something I'm just saying to be all like, I hope you believe me and trust me that I do not desire to manipulate anyone into taking this or anything that I ever offer. I don't want you in a program that's the wrong one for you. I don't want you having the feeling of like resentment that you spent money and you're like, oh, this is actually kind of like, wah, wah. Like she said it was going to be great. And it's kind of like that. I don't want you to feel that way. So when I say this is going to change your life, feel my heart, feel my harmonics. I fucking mean it. I mean it. This is like, yeah, this is for you. If you are ready to change your life in the best way, in the most powerful and empowering way. Okay, I'm going to read some of these comments because I've been missing them. The Daily Devon. Hey, Devon. Okay, so you said, how do we know if a sudden anxiety attack is a warning sign or something we need to clear out? I feel like anxiety is never a warning sign. For me, at least. This is just me. But my warning signs tend to come as this little feeling or this little thought that's like, I know this is a stupid example, but it's the one that's most accessible to me. So the other night, I was going to take William up to bed, and my partner was giving our daughter a snack. And I finished packing up the dishwasher, and I just had this little thought like, you should start the dishwasher. And then I was like, well, she's having a snack, so we can just put the bowl in, like, he can put the bowl in the dishwasher after, and then that gets clean too. And then I had a thought, you should remind him to start the dishwasher. And then I was like, he's a grown-ass man, Amy. Like, don't nag your partner. So I didn't listen to those thoughts, and I went upstairs and went to bed and came down in the morning, and the full-ass dishwasher had not gotten started overnight. And I know that's a stupid example because who cares if the dish just didn't get done. But that is always how my warning signals come in. They're like these calm thoughts. It's like the person in the backseat of the car who sees the deer on the side of the road about to jump in front of the car and you're the driver and you didn't see it. And like, they're like, oh, hey, there's a deer. You know, they're trying to be cool about it so that they don't make you slam on the brakes in a panic. Like, that's what my warning signals always come through as. And I guess if I don't listen to them, maybe they do turn into anxiety, but I think it slowly builds. Like it never starts out with that fever pitch. You know what I mean? So that's just me. When I have anxiety, it is my mind that is freaking out about something. It's my mind that is like feels triggered and unsafe, and maybe it is correct, because I'm certainly not saying that our minds are not ever correct, but it warrants like a conversation with my mind. That's kind of what works best for me. I used to have crippling anxiety and was medicated for it, and I figured out how to communicate with my anxiety so that it's no longer troubling me in that way. Okay, let me see. Well, thanks for loving my honesty, everybody. I love you all. And Chelsea said, I'm feeling this so much, and I'm also at peace with not being able to be there. I know, girl. I love you. You are so powerful, and I imagine that you're still integrating a lot of things. Okay, everyone. I'm going to sign off and let you all go. Thank you so much for being here with me for this conversation. I don't even know how long it lasted. I'm going to go and record the energy report now. I adore you. We've got this. We've got this. This is, whether you're able to join me or not, or you feel called to join me or not, I just want to leave you with the parting sentiment that things look chaotic and they feel chaotic, but they are moving in a direction that we need to. And I believe that we are all hearing and feeling those warnings that it's time to let go of certain things and let the old ways die. It's time to gently, progressively unhook ourselves from the false matrix and reclaim ourselves and reclaim this realm. It's a process, but we have got this. I love you all, and I will connect with you again very soon. Mwah. Oh, and if you want the information, it's on my website. Link is, sorry, that was low battery. Link is in my bio, and then there are stories with a link too, or you can just DM me and I will send it to you. Okay. Love you. Bye, everyone.